Hey, it's Terry, your favorite no bullshit artist and business coach, and you're listening to Terry Talks, where we discuss all things taboo, uncovering art industry nonsense, grounding you in confidence and leadership to run an arts business with unwavering power and grit. Hello, welcome back to another episode of Between the Two of Us. I am here with an OG client of mine, Allison Belolan, who is an abstract artist creating thoughtful works in paper, mixed media from her studio in Westchester, New York.
Hello.
So, hi, Allison. I feel a long time, not really. I feel like I see everyone on Instagram every day. Today, I wanted to pick your brain about residencies because I feel like you've been on a roll. I feel like you have this like beautiful, well-rounded experience thus far in some of the residencies you've chosen to apply for. And so I think that it's going to be really important today to really speak to the benefits of being in a residency program, how to choose one. Like, I'm just going to like ask you all the things. The first thing for our listeners that I want to describe is what is a residency. And I think that for emerging artists, we're so eager to just like get the visibility really quickly and apply to as many art shows as possible and just jump in, head first and make sure that we are in as many shows as possible. But I feel like sometimes we're skipping a huge part of the journey where we may need to be developing and focusing on our work with all the distractions of social media and all the hype and how many open calls come through the door. We are risking a lot of money. We're risking a lot of time, and sometimes it's not as focused as it could be. So I'm going to describe what a residency is to our listeners. If you're not familiar, this is sort of like the basis. So residency is meant to provide the creative with sacred time and space to focus solely on their work. Working on either, you could work on a specific project, developing a, sort of an in progress body of work, or just simply focusing on furthering your concepts, your themes. All of the above could be the case. But obviously, when you're applying to a residency, they usually have you pitch some kind of proposal, like what do you plan on doing with this time? Residence can be short-term, long-term. A short-term, I would say, could be, a couple weeks to a year. It could be all inclusive, right? Like room, studio, some food, basics, or it could be just like the studio time. Some can be very niche, so like to a specific type of artist, writer, there's writer retreats, things like that. And then some can be completely free, some can charge a fee, and they're all over the world. So I hope that that gives everybody sort of a basis before we jump into Allison's experience and stories. And I want to start by asking, like, what encouraged you to want to hop on the residency train, and like, how did you start this process of being like a little more aligned in that direction?
So I think I came to applying for residencies and deciding that this is something that I wanted to do and was important to my practice was because I felt like I wasn't a quote unquote real artist unless I was participating in residencies and grants, like all the things that the art world says you need to be a real artist. So that was one reason why. But I also saw the value in the dedicated time for creating your work. Now, most artists are not just artists. Like most artists, in terms of most artists, are not full-time artists. They're working on, they have a day job. They are a caregiver like myself. They have multiple other jobs. They're balancing a lot. So it's rare and difficult to get just like uninterrupted time
Yeah.
just for your art practice. And that was incredibly appealing to me, especially when I came to my own art practice. I had left teaching and I had two elementary age kids. COVID hit, and I was like, oh, like I need some time alone to
Yeah.
just be able to focus, extended time to just focus on my art. So that was what the big appeal of applying for a residency was. And I have to say, once like I did one, that became the primary.
It sort of
Um,
said,
right, that was the reason. Well, yes, into doing others, but also that became the reason for wanting to do more, was having that uninterrupted time. It wasn't so much that like, oh, this is going to look great on my resume. It's that,
like, oh
no,
shit,
this time is amazing.
yeah.
Yeah.
And then you leave with like work. You're like, okay,
Right.
actually, it's time to like maybe sell this work. It's time to maybe, like further explore or go
Exactly.
deeper.
Right.
Yeah,
I
I think,
know, like every time that I've done, sorry, I did a residency, I have made, those are the times that I've made like big leaps or big discoveries, where like big changes have happened. And it's really just because that's all I have to focus on. I don't have to worry about who's going where at 3 o'clock and what we're having for
who's
dinner
the
and like,
star, and yeah.
yeah.
I'm sure I know a lot of people can relate to that. I mean, the
Mhm.
distractions, the overwhelm of just like life in general and being healthy, and oh my god, I got to get up and work out, and
Mhm.
just the pressure of like aligning your day. Um Especially if you are a freelancer and you do have, like you said, like the multiple gigs, and you're
Yeah.
kind of like running all over the place, whether you have an at-home studio or an away studio, it's still, like the unwavering commitment to get
Mhm. Yeah.
there, and then push yourself is, it's challenging. It's definitely challenging. And so what I heard was like, doing this residency, obviously the uninterrupted time, the sacred space, like untouched just for Allison, was
Mhm.
a huge, draw to doing the residencies.
Oh
What
yeah,
When
it's
you got into
magical.
the residencies, like what was the goal once you sort of got there?
So I'm trying, like my very first residency was through the Artist Mother Network, which is
Mhm.
now something else, but they
Yeah.
had, um, I'll think of it later, I'm sure. Sorry.
Oh, I know
And
what
then,
you're talking about. I also am blanking on the
yeah.
actual name, but yes.
And then, and they would do a residency. So, Kaylin, one of the women who founded Artist Mother Network, converted like her childhood home into a family-friendly residency
Oh my
in
god.
Paris, Tennessee. So that was the first one I did, because it was a week. So, um, and like as a parent, I think this applies to a lot of people, but as a mother, as a parent artist, like I can't just disappear for 3 months. Sometimes I would really like
Yeah.
to, but it's just not possible. Maybe once my children are older, like right now they're elementary aged. But like I can't just disappear for 3 months, which seems to be like that, like a month, 3 month is like what a
Yeah.
lot of
Yeah.
residencies are. So I was really excited that this was it was a week. Um so that was easy. Like I could do that. you
There's
know.
definitely, for parents who are listening, it's possible.
Oh, it's
It's
possible. It
possible.
is possible.
It's absolutely possible.
Um, it takes work, and it takes a lot of research, but it's possible to do it.
And
And I
also
think it's,
planning and organizing the whole
yeah,
family getting on board and
right.
all that stuff. But there are some new and up and, um, residencies that are supportive to like the family as a whole. Sometimes you can
Oh,
bring
there are.
your family up.
Yes. And this is one of those places. Like,
Oh
so
wow.
this residency, I was able to bring my family, and I did invite them.
Did they decline?
They did.
You're like, Mom, really?
It was mostly because Ken would still have had to have worked. And this is like the other, like, this is
Yeah.
also another component to residencies where you can bring your family along. Like, my husband partner still had to work, so like who was going to take care of the kids?
Yeah.
Yeah. Um, so he just decided like, it was February that I did it. So I can't remember. Oh, I think it was school break. Like we timed it so that it was
Oh,
when the
okay.
kids had break, I went and he went and visited his family, like in Savannah, I
Guys,
think.
it's possible.
So
Allison
yeah, it's possible.
together. Oh my God. Okay.
Like it takes planning, but it's absolutely possible. So, and then there are some residencies out there that do a little bit better about supporting parents in terms of like they have programs for your kids
Yeah.
or they have resources that they can give you to help find things like caregivers and what while you're at the residency. So
I mean, that's
we need
definitely
more though.
progressive. Yeah, that's definitely more progressive though in like today's day and age,
Hmm.
like supporting artists in many different ways, mental health, scholarships, things like that. So
Hmm.
when you went to your first residency, what did you work on?
I um I just played and experimented. I had a couple ideas. So this is when I was really first starting to get into the abstract landscapes that I've been making with found papers, and I had been working on the cracked mirror series, but I didn't bring those because I didn't think that would travel well. Like, so you have to bring your stuff. Most
Right.
residencies, you bring everything.
Yes.
So, like,
Yes.
I had a big suitcase of art supplies and like a tiny carry-on of clothes.
You're like, what's my priorities here?
Bring all the art supplies. So you have to think about that. But you know, one other really nice thing about that particular residency, what there was no project requirement. Some residencies do have requirements, like you have to say what project you're working on,
What's the plan?
what's the plan. Granted, I mean everyone sort of understands that sometimes plans change, but you have to go in with a plan. A lot of residencies want you to do some sort of public program, whether it's an artist talk or a workshop or something. Um, but this one was not. This one was just about getting in there and having time, like really what a residency should be about.
Yeah. Yeah.
So, I just brought a whole bunch of stuff and just experimented, spent time playing and experimenting, seeing what was happening, like,
What
figuring out
amazing.
different techniques. Yeah, it
Yeah.
was really amazing. It was
And I
really,
know
really amazing.
some residencies do come with like other perks. Like sometimes you have critiques. Sometimes
Hmm.
you can gather with some of the other residents, who are in the program as well. Like there's a little bit of networking, there's some of this,
Right.
some of that. You have some mentorship. What was involved in this? Was it just purely like Allison's world? And that's
Yeah. Oh, it was just me. It was just me in the farmhouse in the middle of Paris, Tennessee. Yeah, so it was great. But like I just recently finished up a residency at the Yellow Studio in Cross River, which was a little bit different in that the space I was in, um, there are a few artists who have studios there, so like they were around, and the residency room um, can have two artists. So at some points I was by myself, but at some points there was another artist in there. So I did have more of a community. There was more talking. It wasn't exactly solitude.
and I know you had one of your first solo shows.
So I had a duet there
A
with
duet.
another a duet. Like is that how a
No, I don't
two-person
know.
show duet?
I like that.
Let's go with duet.
Yeah, a
Yeah,
duet
that just
show.
it just closed last week.
Awesome.
But I found a really amazing community there.
Yeah, and like
Yeah.
again, like every residency has their own kind of finale. Some have that
Hmm.
end of the residency show or some kind of, write
Right.
up or whatever it is. Um,
Yes.
let's talk about the application process
Mm.
that everyone is sort of there's an intimidation behind
Oh yeah.
I think the application process really in any situation, right? You're applying for a job, you're applying for this, you want to make sure like all your T's are crossed and all your I's are dotted, like, and then sometimes we get turned off and so we just don't.
Yes.
Period.
Yeah. And I've done that. I have certainly done that.
Me freaking too.
Yeah.
Um, what do you think was the most challenging part of the applications process in any of them?
Well, I think before even like starting to apply, it's finding the grant that not grant, finding the residency that made sense and worked best for me, which we can go into a little bit later.
Yeah.
But the actual application process, um, I think the most difficult things for me were the writing
Yeah.
and then knowing what images to show.
It's very,
So,
very common
yeah,
thing. Yes, what
yeah,
definitely the images. Those are the two. Actually, a client recently was like, "I hate writing."
yeah.
And and I think that I used to be the same where I was like, "I hate writing and I'm not good at it." Those were like my two sentences.
Yeah, and that's something that a lot of artists say is that I'm not good at it and I hate doing it. Yeah.
Right. And I think that and I would say that even like my like over the years, like my emails are sounding better. You know what I mean? And so like obviously, any of these documents that you're preparing are going to go through like 1,000 reviews.
Oh, right. And absolutely like to what you just said, the more you do it, the better you get.
Exactly.
And then you'll also find that you can reuse and repurpose a lot of your old writing because really essentially what you're writing about doesn't change all that much.
Right. Exactly.
Um, unless maybe you're doing something like completely different with your art or like you're pivoting to a completely different area or something, then sure. But
Yeah.
still, they're all asking you essentially like what kind of art do you make? Like what would you be doing at this residency? Why this residency?
Right.
And then if there is some sort of like public presentation component, what that might look like. So,
The
you
bio,
know,
the CV,
yeah,
those are those are like regulars. You
right.
should have that shit on hand, like as a receipt in your wallet. Like
Like, here,
exactly.
take
That's
it out. Here it
on your
is.
business card. Like,
Mhm.
and I think that if you're even applying, even for open calls,
Right.
sometimes they'll ask you just these basics, right?
Hmm.
Like, who are you as an artist? And like you said, like, what do you make? Um, what kind of, career do you have? What's your experience? Things like that. But
Hmm.
this is just like applying for any job or any opportunity. And I think that we look sometimes as artists, we look at this like some of these opportunities. You mentioned this at the very beginning. Like there's this like elite thing that's still tingling over the artist community where it's like we've got to like have X, Y, and Z. And
Hmm.
but we like make it like we make it so that it's almost unreachable sometimes.
Hmm.
Um, when really it's a part of our job. Like it is a part of the whole thing. Like when I was a teacher, I'd get professional development.
Right.
That was not like reaching for the stars. That was just like an inclusive part of
Yeah.
me being an educator. And so, like, I think that I want, anyone who's listening to understand that this is a part of our development. Like, we not deserve it. It's just a part of things.
It's a
Like,
part of things.
yeah,
Yeah.
we're not like earning these for accolades. I think that
Mm-mm.
everyone should be applying to residencies, and the development doesn't only happen in a space where you feel comfortable and shouldn't. Our studios are like our little comfort sweaters, what I mean? Our
Right.
little blankies, like are like, are like stuffies. And
They are.
when we step
Hmm.
out of that, it's like what could happen, you know?
Hmm. And I
Um
also, so like before our call, guys, we were talking before the call,
we're
before we started recording, and Terry, you had asked about like when I started applying. So like for me, at the very beginning of like you know being an artist and going artist full time, I was applying more to open calls and all that kind of stuff because I thought like sales and visibility were the most important thing, and that I wasn't like a real artist, as I said before. But for you, it was the opposite. You were
yeah,
doing more residencies, and I like looking back, hindsight, is 2020. I wish I had done it that way. That I had taken the time to really
like
work on my art, get to know who I was an artist, what my voice was before doing all that other stuff.
I think it was also like my approach, now this is 9 years ago when I was a full-time artist. I had my studio in the Gowanus in Brooklyn. All I wanted was what were residencies. I mean,
Mm,
I would have traveled anywhere. And at the time, there wasn't, 9 years ago, the amount of free residencies now, even ones that that maybe have a scholarship, or there are so many now all over the world. I think 9 years ago it wasn't as, I don't know, now I can kind of reach out and like grab one, you know what I mean? And I can kind of like, there's so many more to apply to.
mm,
Um, there's a broader umbrella of
mhm,
things, of kinds of residencies. And it was, back then it was like you either pitched a project. This is what I will work on in the next 6 months or 4 months, whatever it was. Um, and I remember now, obviously I regret it, but I remember I got accepted to the McDowell
oh
um,
yeah.
residency after applying 3 times.
Hmm.
And I declined for a boyfriend. Declined. I
Mm,
also was an educator full, year round. And I needed like, it was hard to do, obviously, for many people who have the full-time job. It is really hard to do both.
hmm.
Um,
Yeah.
so it was like an option for me. It wasn't like my like livelihood at the time.
Yeah.
And I think that, thinking about why I applied to residencies is it was the educator MFA aspect, especially my MFA, where they were
Hmm.
like, no, you need to create full on body of work before you can even step into a gallery. And that was like their
Hmm.
thing. Talking about my artist statement was like a huge part of our MFA program. And then we had like an NYU, it was through NYU in Italy. And then we had a culminating show, right? Your
Hmm.
thesis. So
Right.
spending like 3 years working on a body of work, technically working on this like thing, you know what I mean? This kind of like, it was like intensifying up till the thesis show. It was ingrained in me that studio time was number one.
Mm.
So I guess that's why, I never
Hmm.
really
Maybe.
thought about like, oh, I need to make money off of my art right now. I need to go and develop. I'm not sure that I can present, what would I say? I don't know. Yeah. So that might have been like a part of my educational background that professional
Maybe.
development was number one.
That's really interesting. Well, because I didn't do the MFA thing,
Right.
so.
So I think residencies for people who don't do MFAs is the way.
Hmm.
The way. Like, I don't know. I think that that's like the sort of the other MFA in a way. Like if you can
Mm.
get multiple experiences, you're in Paris for a residency, you're in Tennessee for a residency,
Hmm.
you're in these like weird places. I mean, um they're really like spread across the country, which is such a beautiful thing. And what do you think, like thinking about today, and I know
Hmm.
that this yellow studio residency kind of just closed out.
Hmm.
What do you think the how have these residencies impacted your work today
So,
and allowed you to do? Like, what have they
mhm.
allowed you to do?
um, I think the biggest thing that they have allowed me to do is have time to just experiment and play, which is really important to my process, but also I think important to any artist is to have that the freedom to do that, because that's when you learn and grow. So for me, each residency experience, I have the core idea, the core thing that my goal, I guess, was playing and experimenting and learning. Um, so each time I've had a great experience doing just that, and it's pushed my practice and the art that I'm making forward, and I'm able to build on what I've done. So I think I've done three official
Oh,
residencies
wow.
and one that it was a DIY. I made it up myself.
Like it?
Why not? And each time, like, I can build on what happened previously. So I think, um, from the artist mother residency, it was really just learning to appreciate and use that time. Um, and that was hard. you
Yeah,
know,
I'm sure. I'm
but
sure that was hard. Being in people are in like, artists are in solitude. That's a different that is
no,
being with
this was different.
yourself. Yeah, being with yourself is different than solitude. I mean,
Yeah,
'cause we have music, we could jam out and then walk out and get something to eat and then come
right.
back and, like, be
Mm-mm.
it's that's different. That's quiet.
Yeah. It was quiet. It was I mean, it was wonderful, but it was difficult. And then I did another week-long residency at Zero Foot Hills in Connecticut, which is also run by a woman artist, Amy, who is also a mother and a parent. And her whole vision for the Zero Foot Hills is that it's for people who are traditionally underrepresented or challenged in the art world, parents, low income
Right.
artists, because it's a free residency. You don't have to pay. You just go, like you schedule it, right? You talk to them, you schedule, you apply, and then you go. And they're very flexible with the times, like how long it can be. Again, like you could bring family. Um, it's really a great place. So I went and did that, and that's where I sort of started to develop this process that I really love doing now, which is like exploring, noticing, looking, and documenting, and then taking all that and creating art with it.
So
Um,
you're doing a lot of research at I would say, you're kind of like
mhm,
stacking up the research in terms
yeah.
of material research and exploration. And
Hmm.
I would say, everyone's approach is different. Obviously, when they're going in, some of them are coming in with old work and wanting to
Hmm.
extend that and amplify that. And then some people are going in like you. I kind of also went in with a similar mindset of like, I want to do things that I may not have the opportunity or the quietness to do.
Hmm.
Um, because it's almost easier to go into your studio and just kind of like bang, like really go in hard, 4 hours, then leave, and then go in, want to finish something and then on to the next. You know what I mean?
Hmm.
There's not as much slow time, uh,
Hmm.
especially when you have like art shows on your mind and you have
Right.
like all these grand ideas. It's
Yeah.
like, okay, well, maybe I need to slow down to speed up.
Hmm. For sure. And then, so those were both week long residencies. And then this one at the Yellow Studio that I finally that I just completed it over the summer. I guess it really wasn't that recently, but it feels
I
like
think
it.
it's just the show.
What's that?
I think it was because of the show.
Oh yeah, probably. Yes. That residency was ended up being 4 months.
Okay,
But I commuted there every day. Like this
that's right.
was a residency where you do not actually live there. Because there is no living space. So
It's studio specific.
yeah, it's a studio. Oh, this is a great way of saying it. It's a studio specific residence. So I would go, but I had access to it 7 days a week. I
Wow.
think they just didn't like us being there after 10 p.m., but that was fine with me. So,
Getting
and
wild, Allison.
I know, I could just go. I could
Zero
go
life.
and work and
Yeah.
then come home at night. And I remember when I first told Ken, like, proposed that this is something I was interested in. He's like, "Oh, okay, like how long?" And I was like, "3 months." And he was like, "What?" I was like, "Oh, no, 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 don't worry. It's
Yeah,
like
yeah, yeah.
half an hour away."
He's like, "No, no, no, Allison. We're running away to Artland."
Like, what are you thinking? But
Yeah.
no, like I
Work
drove
again.
there. I
Yeah,
came home at night and I was able to have this extended period. And this is the first residency where I had like a project in mind. It
yeah.
wasn't necessary, but I decided
I was gonna
that,
ask you that. Did
yeah.
For that one specifically, did you,
Mm.
like, have something in mind?
I did.
Yeah.
So you didn't have to, but I
Okay.
did. I wanted to build on what I had started doing at the Zero Foot Hills, which was like
Okay.
more of this documenting and finding out how to incorporate more of that documentation into my landscapes and how to create more of a sense of a place, but not like literally.
Yeah.
So my idea was to go explore and hike around Ward Pound Ridge Reservation, which is one of the largest, no, it is the largest county park in Westchester. And it's beautiful and it's gorgeous. Um, So I would go and hike and explore there and document all my hikes and take pictures and rubbings and stuff. And
What
then
an amazing job, Allison, you
it
have.
was so cool. And went back to the studio and made art.
Job that
Yeah.
we get to do. Folks, what
Hmm.
an amazing job we get. This is our fucking job.
Yeah.
This is the job. Like, I love
Yeah.
that.
And I also knew that I wanted to learn more about paper making and cyanotypes. So I also spent like time learning that, relearning, learning that, figuring out how I wanted to make it work for my art.
I'm like getting so inspired by this conversation. I'm like, apply to residencies. What's been on my back burner recently? I love it.
Mhm.
I've definitely had the itch to take some classes actually with Claire Wilson, who is an
Mm.
incredible watercolorist. And I've had this like love-hate relationship with watercolor. It's so
Yeah.
difficult for me. And I'm a mixed media artist, similar to you, where like I like things. I yeah,
Mhm.
and I want to put like glue stuff together. And
Yeah.
like I like that process, but like I feel like watercolor pushes me to do the slow down sometimes.
Mhm. Mhm.
I kind of want to get back to some of my technical skills. That's something I'm definitely going to be doing this year. And so the watercolor and the ceramics are like classes I want to take. Um,
Mhm.
very different. I feel like two very
Yeah,
different things.
but that's okay. I think I know this is like completely off topic, but something that a lot of artists, and I've certainly fell into this trap myself, and like I still fight it and try to get away from it, but like you don't have to just do one thing.
Right.
You can
Right.
do lots of different stuff.
Yes. Absolutely. And
Yeah.
then when it comes time where you are applying to something that is very kind of on the straight and narrow, and they're asking and looking for something specific, and this could be a whole nother episode, because well, I mean, in the other, actually the previous episode with Letitia, we actually discussed like, do I make art like just to sell it and the ones that they like, or can I pivot and like I want to like clearly I'm projecting onto my audience that I'm over it. You know what I mean? And like I'm like, well, when it comes time to like pivot, it's not like, unless you're making a dramatic jump from
Hmm.
like, let's say, watercolor to like, I'm done with that. I'm going into installation and like boulders and like, Dia Beacon style. Then I think that like your transitions are actually more seamless than people think. My
Hmm.
style is still my style. Whether I make a ceramic cup or I do a hand building class or I make a watercolor painting. The style, like Terry, is not really going to like change that
Hmm.
much.
It's
I
still you
work
making it. Yeah.
right, like my self-expression and my creativity is still mine. And so
Hmm.
like as a mixed media artist, I definitely, had to think long and hard about what that looked like for me, because I too was like kind of all over the place at one moment, and then I looked at everything and I'm like, but I'm actually not that over the I'm
Right.
not all over the place actually. I mean,
Or
what
you
is
can just take your old stuff and tear it up, which is what I do.
for that exactly the wonders of repurposing. Um, So let's wrap this up, because I definitely feel like we talked about so much, and I think our listeners are going to guys, apply to a fucking
You
residency.
should, but I think you know what we haven't touched on that I think we should definitely talk about is like you can fall into the same trap with applying to residencies that you can fall into with applying to open calls. Is that um, it will really benefit you to spend the time before you even start researching residencies to know like what you want out of it. Do you
Yes.
want to travel? Do you want it to be a week? Like how long can you do it? Like figure all that. How much can you pay? Because a lot of residencies do um, require you to pay. Um, it's just the way it is, So um, like fall, winter, like what time of year are you looking for?
Yeah.
Because that also like that all comes into play. So like know what you as an artist are looking for and what you want. It's like come up with your ideal residency, right? And then go start looking. And look for ones that fit your needs and that you also think it's like interviewing for a job that you would be a good match for, you
Right.
know?
Where did
Um,
you where how did you start your research journey though?
I would look on nyfa.org was a good place to look.
Yeah.
And then I would also look at, I think I just did like a Google, or like Creative Capital has some good
Yeah.
resources.
And if you get on those
Um,
2 email lists, I mean, Creative Capital is, like, really
yeah.
top notch for
Hmm.
their list is so extensive, and they come
Yeah.
is it I don't know if it's they just came out with I don't know if it's monthly or if it's might be monthly.
I
Um,
think it is monthly.
I think I got a December 2020, but guys, remember that also residencies are scheduled super far in advance.
Oh, yeah, they
So,
are.
applications for, like, spring and, like, all the ones that I share in my close friends, on Instagram that I'm, like, throwing out, I'm like, "Guys, the deadline's, like, tomorrow. The
Yeah.
deadline's next week." I mean, these applications are like, they're no joke. Unless there's a little bit of an extension, they will take their cohorts like 6 months to a year in advance, some of them.
Yes. I'm actually doing a residency this summer,
Oh my
the
god.
Golden the Golden Apple residency. It's 2
Um,
weeks in Maine. I applied for that one last year. So, like, it's, yeah, you plan ahead. It's at least 6 months, sometimes a year in advance.
Yes, yes. Yeah, because I've seen some applications the other day this last week that I was putting out, some 3 of them I think for 2025.
Yeah.
Like,
Hmm.
they've got their cohort for this year, you know what
Yep.
I mean? And it's not like 50 people, let me tell you. It's, it's it could
No,
be
it's small.
yeah, they could be under 10 sometimes, depending.
Hmm.
And obviously, some of those are the more competitive ones, where you do have to have a more extensive CV, or you
Hmm.
do have to be. They want to know that you're actively participating in
Right.
the professional art world, and I think that
Hmm.
makes sense because they don't want you wasting anyone's time, resources, or anyone's spot. Like if
Right.
I was a juror looking at applications, someone's like, well, I just started, like a month ago, and kind of just, like, no, like, I want to know that you've been active in the community, you are
Mhm.
actively, showing, and you're pushing yourself regardless of the residency or not.
Right.
um
So I think I just
yeah.
quickly looked up some other places. The artist's office they do a monthly mailing for grants, but like they have a subscription for grant
Yep.
notices, but sometimes residencies or grants are kind of lumped together.
Yes, if you want to pay
Yeah.
maybe for
Um,
see what you will do with that money or something.
and then sometimes you'll find like they just list the residencies with the same categories grants. And then also, I think, is it Art Girl Rising? They
Yes.
do a subscription or like an email thing also where they tell you about grants that are grants. It's only Tuesday.
It's only 12.
Residencies that are coming up. And I've also found, I mean,
I
just
feel like
like
listings project, but I will
listings project. Yeah.
guys, I'll go ahead and at the bottom of this episode, I'll do a little like a brief list of like some of the
Yeah.
top ones that come into my email as well. God, I get so many fucking things
Yeah.
that are
And it
amazing.
also doesn't hurt to do a little Google searching,
Yeah.
like a good old Google search, because sometimes you'll find more local um, grants. Like if you search residencies, if you search like New York residencies or like
Yes.
Idaho residencies, like you might find
Like very specific.
specific ones, right? And also like same thing for searching for material specific ones, because there's definitely like, oh, I just saw recently like Wave Hill in
Yep.
the Bronx, they have one for media, a residency for
Yes.
people who are interested in media, which is awesome.
Yep.
So yeah. And
And there's
then
definitely a lot of the public, like the MTA is doing something
yeah.
right now. Like I see
Hmm.
that all over. One of my clients applied to do one of the murals. Like there's definitely yes, thank you for bringing that up because
Yeah.
it's not just for painters, it's not just for visual artists.
Mm-mm.
It's so many different. There's, writers retreats that are a similar thing, where you're just kind of by, with yourself. Uh
Yeah.
what's next for Allison?
What's next for me? Well, I'm really trying hard this year to slow down a little bit, to focus more on things that I was preaching, like finding,
Yep,
being really
absolutely.
intentional about what I'm applying to and
Yeah.
why, um, and finishing work, like finishing bodies of work that I started, and all that. You know, that's
Are
what I'm
you
looking
going to
forward to.
be I know that you participated in one of the fairs. Was it the
hmm
affordable?
No, I did the other art fair. I
The
have been
other
doing
art
that one.
there's a
The
couple that I'm like
the
get them.
fall, yeah, that's my so far my favorite independent art fair that I've
I
done.
The vibe was
Yeah,
great.
it's so fun.
Honestly, that might also be one of my faves on it. Like,
Yeah.
I found it to be very like non-elitist, and there
Mm-mm.
were some really in like the artists who participated were amazing. I thought
Oh,
the
the
quality.
quality of work is amazing. It is. Yeah.
Are you going to be doing any fairs maybe in 2024?
Maybe. So I actually applied to do the other art fair in Chicago this spring. So
Love
we'll see how that goes. This will be the first time that I'm like traveling to do a fair. So like, that's just like a plan that I'm putting into place, but I don't know if it'll be work, like if it will actually make sense for me to do that. I don't think I'm going to do many fairs in the fall because it is an election year and
Mhm.
it's going to be a crazy election year. And I feel like um, people might not be buying as much art this fall.
The economy is going to do something weird.
Yeah,
I
something's going to
think
happen.
it's already, post pandemic. Well, post.
hmm
I don't know if that is even a PC term, but let's just say like less hectic. I think people's investments are just different. People are
Yeah,
spending money on bigger, longer term houses, properties, um, stocks. Like people are just spending money differently.
right.
Um,
And granted, they should really fill those houses with art, but
Right. Yeah,
but
just saying.
yeah, I think like practicality wise, like I don't think I'm gonna do much. I will like I have typically done the Bruce Museum Art Fair in the fall, which I really like, and I really enjoy that one, and I'm usually successful at that one. So, but that's a pretty I don't want to say it's low key. It's an easily managed
Yeah.
fair. Like it's close to home.
You're
It's
very
15.
you're very engaged in your community. You're
Yeah.
very like, but you also like have sought out a lot of opportunities near you so that
Mm-hmm.
it's not something that's so far out of reach.
Mm-mm.
We don't have to go too far, especially if you're
No.
in New York, folks. You do not have
Yes.
to like reach for the Gagosian every 2 seconds. Like we can't,
Mm-mm.
there are other comparable opportunities that still feel amazing.
Oh, for sure. Like conquer your local community
Yeah,
first and then move on to the world.
absolutely. Well, it was lovely talking to you.
Oh, same likewise as always, Terry.
This was great. And I love spending time with you and just like picking your brain on this was would have listened to this 7 years ago for sure. And be like, oh, okay, hop to it.
Mhm.
Um, for everybody who's listening, I will make sure to provide Allison's info. Allison, where can we find you? What can we buy from you? How can we support you?
So many ways. So my website is AllisonBelolanArt.com, and there you'll find a lot of information about me, what I'm up to, who I work with, and available art. You'll also see upcoming shows. I do have a group show opening this Saturday at the Yellow Studio. It is a show all about identity, and it's women artists. It's called Facets. It's through the Katona Museum Artists Association, which I am a board member on. Um, but so that's coming up, and then I shall be making art. And I have a couple things in my coming up for February. They're not solid yet, so I don't want to say anything.
Okay,
Um,
we love it.
but
And
in
subscribe
terms of support,
now.
like yes, I was going to say, like, get on my email list. I will not flood your inbox. I send like a seasonal quarterly newsletter, and then when there's things coming up that I want you to know about or something special for the people on my list, I will send that out.
I can attest to that. I'm on her list. So I can attest that she will not bombard you. I
Mm-mm.
definitely send out lots of emails. So it's all good.
It's all good.
Okay, Allison, I will talk to you soon. Everyone,
Yes.
thank you so much for listening to this episode of Between the Two of Us. Have a great rest of the day.
Bye.